The DOE is DOA. It only took about 45 years, but yes, no more Department of Education. We're going to talk about the great moment at the White House, what needs to happen next from the legislative branch, and we're going to drink up the delicious, angry, frustrated, wailing tears of the teachers union from one Randi Weingarten. We'll get into all of that. Plus, Jessica Tarlov did not disappoint. We told you she'd say something equally as stupid on yesterday's show, and we're back to enjoy that. And also, really fun thing here with Gavin Newsom. We told you a couple of weeks ago when he claimed he never used the word Latinx, that he used it a lot of times. Well, even CNN is getting on the fun, dunking on Governor Hairgel. We're going to give you all of that and a whole lot more coming up right now. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. And it's a good time to remind you that you can buy your Town Hall merch. The link is right down below in the comments. We got lots of Town Hall merch, including your own Larry mug. You can all call yourself Larry when you drink out of that mug. Yesterday, Donald Trump actually delivered on one of the things that many Republicans assumed was just an impossibility. He got rid of the Department of Education. This was the signing ceremony yesterday in the East Room at the White House, and it was an amazing thing to behold. Not only the fact that he was doing it and actually doing as much as he could in the executive branch to get rid of the Department of Education, but the optics were fantastic. You know, optics is a word that's sort of overused in political analysis, but optics matter. What things look like, I've mentioned this before, Donald Trump understands the showmanship and theatricality and the visual nature of the presidency. And the fact that he was in the East Room with that backdrop, what do we see? We see the flag of each state, because the money is now going to go to the states. The power and decision-making ability will go to the states. If you look at the founding language of the legislative act that created the Department of Education, they pretended like there was nothing in this law that was going to infringe on the state's right to control the education of the children in that state. Of course, it got out of control immediately. And ever since Ronald Reagan, the first president after Jimmy Carter, created this abomination in 1979, ever since Ronald Reagan, every Republican has vowed to destroy the Department of Education, and none of them were able to. Now, Donald Trump can't single-handedly destroy the Department of Education, but he can do quite a bit to make sure that it goes away and that the money that is right now funneled through this endless chain of bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., everybody trying to take their own bit of it, will eventually get to those kids who were sitting on little desks behind Donald Trump with their own versions of the executive order and citing it themselves, because that's the other part of these optics. It's for those kids, and those kids were getting the buy-in along with their parents in the audience. And my favorite part is that a good majority of those kids who were signing are homeschooled, because they've already gotten their kids out of public education because it's been such a failure. Now, the reaction to this has been, well, kind of predictable on the left. You're going to hear from Randi Weingarten now. She is the president of the American Federation of Teachers. She, along with the National Education Association, that's the entity, those are the two entities that represent the public school teachers. They're union bosses. She's going to say a lot about, you know, teaching our kids and taking care of our kids and saving our kids. Just so you know, Randi Weingarten does not have any kids. So when she says our kids, she's talking about your kids. And she thinks she knows best about your kids. You're going to hear a lot from Randi Weingarten, but I want you to take note before you start seeing these clips about what you're not going to hear from her. What you're not going to hear Randi Weingarten or anyone else from any of the teachers unions or any of the Democrats who are going to die on this Department of Education hill, or any of the people in the media who are trying to scare you to tell you that children without disabilities are not going to get any special needs classes. Just so you know, you're going to hear a lot of that from them. What you're not going to hear from them is, look at our great track record. Look at all of the great things we've done. Look at our achievements. Look at our GPAs. Look at our literacy rates. Look at all the great things that the Department of Education has done. Look at our successful track record. You don't hear anything like that from them. All you hear from them is fear-mongering. They're trying to scare you about what they're telling you is going to happen. Not all the great things they have done, for the last 4 decades. All right, Randi Weingarten, take it away.
What the department does is there's about $100 billion. So a kid who has disabilities, a kid who is poor, a kid who's going to Head Start, a kid who's in a rural area, kid who is in a career tech ed program, a kid who gets a Pell Grant, a kid who's limited English proficient. Every single one of those kids, which are essentially most of our kids in public schools, they get basically 10% of every dollar that's spent on them is from the Department of Education.
Wow. Like I said, look at all of these kids who are going to get harmed because of all of that money. $100 billion. You getting your money's worth there, are you? $100 billion. How much of that stays in Washington, D.C. and never actually makes it to your kid's school? And let me just say, I don't talk about it much here, but I will in this context because it's relevant. I'm the father of 4 children. 2 of those kids are special needs children. Randi Weingarten, take my special needs kids' names out of your damn mouth, because I don't know where you were or the members of your union were or the party you support blindingly. I don't know where they were, or the entire Department of Education and the professional public school apparatus. I don't know where any of them were during the pandemic when my special needs kids had to learn from a laptop at the kitchen table because they weren't allowed to go back into school, despite the fact that they had a legal binding IEP contract that said that they got an individualized education protocol because of those special needs. And you're now using my kids as a prop and as a weapon to keep your cronyism alive? Oh, go yourself. Sorry about that. Oh, you're also going to hear about the huge percentage of special needs kids who rely on the public schools. I got something to say about that too. We'll get to it in a second.
The biggest concern is all the opportunity gaps that the federal government provides through the Department of Education. The federal education role is limited. There's no, except for, the Department of Defense schools, which are not run from the Department of Education, or the Bureau of Indian Affairs schools that are not run by the Department of Education. It doesn't control any schools. In fact, it's the states that control schools. So if President Trump doesn't like what's happening in education, it's the states and local school boards that do it.
Such a disingenuous statement here, because they've got the local school districts and the states addicted to that crack pipe of federal money. See, they've convinced the governors and the county supervisors and the school boards that they don't have to raise taxes. No, they're going to get this big gift from the federal government. Here's all the money. So you can now use your dollars there in the local jurisdictions or the state jurisdictions on whatever great idea you've got. And you don't have to raise any taxes. We'll pay for your schools. And they're like, oh, that's great. Fantastic. We're getting federal money. Not knowing that, of course, federal money is all coming from the same place, too. It's all coming from the taxpayers. But see, your governor doesn't get in trouble because he's raised your taxes, because it's those guys in Washington that have raised your taxes, and the money's coming back to you theoretically. However, here's the problem. And Randi Weingarten knows this. The Department of Education gets all those local jurisdictions addicted to the crack pipe of federal funds. And so they're like relying on all the federal money. We got to have that federal money. Give us that federal money. And then it's some nameless, faceless, unelected, corrupt bureaucrat sitting in some cubicle in Washington, D.C. that says, oh, sure, Arkansas, we'd love to give you that money, but we're attaching this string to it. You can have this money, but you got to put this in the curriculum, and you have to do this in your hiring practices, and you got to have these they, them bathrooms, and this, and that, and that, and that, and that. And before you know it, there's a whole lot of strings sticking out of every single one of those dollars, and she knows it. I'm glad she admits the Department of Education is really just a funding apparatus for the states. In fact, based on her argument, you can certainly do exactly what the Department of Education does right now and let the schools make all of those decisions with no strings attached. In fact, she just sort of conceded that point, didn't she? A little bit more from Randi, because if her lips are moving, you know she's lying.
COVID was a terrible time for us. And as you know, because I was on your show a lot and other shows, I wanted schools to be reopened as early as April of 2020. The issue was the fear and the issue was the safety issues. But COVID has really hurt in so many ways. But this has been a Republican talking point for a long time. And
yeah, it's been a Republican talking point for a long time because it's true. And how do I know it's true? Because I was alive and conscious during that time. It wasn't that long ago, Rands. We all saw it. We know it for a fact. And this is a little media trick that people do when they appear on cable news. You'll see it a lot, especially from the left, where they'll try to ingratiate themselves to a host that, forgive me, Brianna, you're just not that smart and not well educated and not well researched for an interview like this. So basically, she's able to put one over on her. When she says something to Brianna Keilar, she says, as you know, you see, and then the host is in a position of saying, well, yes, of course I know. We're both smart. Or the host can be honest and say, oh, actually, I don't know that. Can you give me evidence of what you're saying? See, but they're never going to say that because then it reveals to the audience that they don't know as much as the guest. So the guest says, as you know, and Brianna Keilar just goes, yeah. And it sort of adds a fact check to the lie that she was just telling. So watch her do that again.
COVID was a terrible time for us. And as you know, because I was on your show a lot and other shows, I wanted schools to be reopened.
Did you see what happened? So she says, as you know, and Brianna Keilar agrees before she even says what Brianna Keilar is supposed to know. It's a trick. It's a trick. Guests do this all the time. It's a little media trick they learn. So, as you know, Randi Weingarten wanted the schools open as early as April of 2020. Well, boy, it's too bad we don't live in a world where every single appearance of Randi Weingarten on cable news during the course of the pandemic wasn't captured on video that we can then play back and check to see if she's lying or not. Boy, it's too bad that we do live in a world like that. We definitely live in a world where we have every single thing she said during the pandemic. So what did she just tell Brianna? As you know, I wanted schools open as early as April of 2020. Okay, let's roll it, Randi.
And if people are in high risk, they shouldn't be in school. They should be doing things remotely. Just because Donald Trump wants to take a risk with people who go to bars or beaches, those of us who have spent our life teaching kids are not going to take a risk with kids or with our members' lives. Remote and hybrid are really the only two ways you can reopen schools safely. You got to delay school opening because if you don't have the mask, how are you going to be able to do this? There's a huge difference between working in Walmart and working in a school. You know, even a situation like Florida, where it was pretty clear that schools should not reopen, and where Miami schools did not reopen because you had people who were courageous and who were willing to defy DeSantis's denials.
And why are they closing now?
Martha, they're closing now because what the city said, and frankly, what lots of other places are also seeing, is a huge skyrocketing increase.
Okay, now you're not listening to me. What they're telling us, though, is that the wisest scientific move is to have children in school.
Is that they're trying to figure out a regional way of opening and closing like they did after
they
the
don't
Jewish
need to close.
holidays.
That's the point.
In the
They
middle
don't need to close is the point.
Martha,
that when you hit that,
no,
it says a
the
measurement
mayor
established
said-
by the teachers
the
union
mayor-
over the summer in order to reach an agreement to reopen in the
No.
first place was a 3% threshold.
The mayor set the 3% threshold. What the teachers union did in New York City afterwards was to say, these are the safeguards that we need, and this is the testing we need.
They didn't want the schools open. She did not want the schools open. The union. This goes on for 7 minutes. And thank you to the great guys at Grabien and Tom Elliott for putting this together. They're indispensable, those guys, because yes, we live in a world where we have every single appearance of Randi Weingarten all through the pandemic. We're only in November of 2020. This continued into the fall of 21. She did not spend any time using her posture, her position, her platform, and her incredible political persuasion in the terms of union dollars where she owns those politicians that they support. She didn't use any of that to try to get the schools open for our kids. Every single one of these appearances, she's there fighting. You just saw her fighting with Martha McCallum to keep those schools closed, to harm your kids. What happened yesterday at the White House with President Trump would have never happened if it weren't for the pandemic. Not only because it pissed you off and you finally got into a place where you had had enough, but you also got to see exactly how your kids were learning. You got to see exactly how your kids' teachers performed. You got to see exactly what was in that curriculum. You got to see exactly what was going on in your public schools because you were home too. And you learned quite a bit, didn't you? Yeah, this has been an educational experience for all of us. So in a way, I guess we should thank Anthony Fauci. If it weren't for him and if it weren't for Randi Weingarten, we'd still have a Department of Education. Okay, technically, we still have a Department of Education. Even with the president's executive order yesterday, that's not going to get rid of the department. It now needs to go to the legislature. And there's some Republican congressmen who are, in fact, drafting legislation to officially end the Department of Education. Here's the problem, because, well, you went to school back in a time where Randi Weingarten wasn't in charge, and you probably watched Schoolhouse Rock. You know how this works. You get the House to pass it, you get the Senate to pass it, and then you get the president to sign it. No problem, except for that filibuster thing. You see, in the Senate, any bill needs 60 votes, not 51, 60 votes. And I doubt you're going to get 7 Democrats to cross Randi Weingarten and the teachers union. So now what? What's going to happen? What are we going to do if this thing goes down into defeat because of the cloture vote in the Senate, because of the filibuster? Well, there is a way. And you need to let your congressman know about this. It's called reconciliation. Now, we get into the weeds sometimes here because we're a Washington, D.C. based show, but we respect your intelligence and we know you can follow along on this. A reconciliation bill is a bill that is passed in the House and the Senate that does not require a filibuster-proof 60-vote majority in the Senate. The only caveat is it's got to be, everything in that reconciliation bill must be an item of legislation that affects the budget and taxes and spending. Well, I got to tell you, the existence of the Department of Education definitely affects our budget and it affects spending. And the elimination of that department is a perfect candidate for this great, big, beautiful reconciliation bill that's being crafted right now. You need to let your congressman know that you want the elimination of the Department of Education in that reconciliation bill. This is where the rubber hits the road. And this is where Republicans aren't allowed to just say, oh, yeah, I want to get rid of the Department of Education. We did our best, but what are you going to do? It didn't pass the filibuster. Oh, well, I guess you need to give us a 60-seat majority in the Senate. Until then, there's nothing else we can do. We see right through that. We've seen it before. We've seen it way too many times. This is the moment. This is the opportunity. Everyone's having fun with yesterday's signing ceremony, and it was great. But the next time there's a Democrat in the White House, all that money goes right back into the Department of Education with all those strings attached. So if you want to really get rid of it, now's the time. Now's the time. Eliminate the Department of Education, not with President Trump's signature on an executive order, but with his signature on the reconciliation package. Let's go. All right. This is a good time to let you know that we love our VIP subscribers over at Town Hall Media, and we'd love to give you an offer to become a VIP member, and you'll get 50% off too. All you've got to do is use my name, Larry, as the code word, and you get half off the membership. And that membership gives you an ad-free experience on all of our sites, townhall.com, hotair.com, redstate.com, pjmedia.com, twitchy.com, and bearingarms.com. But not only do you get an ad-free experience, but you also get a bunch of exclusive content that only VIP members get. That includes live chats with a lot of our top contributors on all the sites. But also there's a third thing. Your VIP membership helps keep us free from having to worry about ad revenue from big tech. It helps keep us from being censored. It helps keep our great journalism alive. Great journalism and great columnists unique to the Town Hall Media universe. So join Town Hall, become a VIP member, and tell them Larry sent you. No, I mean literally, tell them Larry sent you, and you'll get 50% off. Thank you for becoming a member of Town Hall Media, a VIP member. Yesterday on this program, we had a lot of fun with Jessica Tarlov because, well, she was kind of moronic. And she said probably the single stupidest thing we've ever seen on cable news in recent years. And that's saying something. But at the end of the show, I said this. When you get owned by a 73-year-old woman who's about 4'11", and you are reduced to just a heaping pile of muttering, mumbling, imbecilic nothing, you know it's time to hang it up. But she doesn't. She keeps coming back for more. God bless that Jessica Tarlov. We're looking forward to today's show. Can't wait to see what kind of stupid thing she has to say. And we also promised you that we would probably share whatever stupid thing she has to say with you. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, it was a bit of a gamble. I mean, why make a promise like that at the end of the show unless I'm confident that Ms. Tarlov would deliver? And she did. Here she is yesterday on the 5, reacting to the elimination of the Department of Education.
Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America. I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished
kids. Because we're against it.
I know you are. Thank you for admitting it in such a public forum. They want to end up privatizing it. They want a voucher system, which means that kids who can't get to those schools, don't have enough money to, or frankly want to go to public schools, won't have access. And they also have all of these religious kooks, like the superintendent of Oklahoma who wants to spend millions of dollars on Bibles for the schools, Trump Bibles, because it's all a grift. They want to make it private. They want to make them religious institutions. And that goes against what you're supposed to do in America. So does it need reform? Does it need to be made better? 100%. But come on.
All right, a quickie here real fast. I do like Gutfeld. Yeah, we're against disabled kids getting their education. Again, hate to play this card, but I've been through the process with 2 of my 4 children having special needs. And you'll see this stat all the time. You know, 98% of disabled children rely on public education. Yeah, let me tell you something about that. In the state of California, which is very similar to most states in this country, there are a lot of tax dollars that are allocated toward therapy programs, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, various other educational therapies for special needs children, whether your kid has cerebral palsy, like one of my kids does, or is on the autism spectrum, like my other child is, or Down syndrome, or what have you. That tax money is there for you to benefit from. You pay your taxes, you should be able to get those benefits, right? So you show up and you say, hey, my kid has special needs, I got to get some therapies, so where are my benefits? And they say, oh, well, here you go. Oh, wait a second. Your kid goes to private school? Oh, wait a second. Your kid is homeschooled? I'm so sorry. But the only way you can access all of these therapies is through the public school system. Yeah. So the state set it up so that all of those therapies for disabled children are funneled through the school district and the school system. Now, there are ways to work around it, and you can still get your therapies through the school system if your kid isn't enrolled there, but it's really hard. It's very challenging, and most parents just say, okay, what the hell? That's why all those disabled children are getting their benefits and their therapies and things through the school system, because the government forces that. All right, so good for Greg to push back there and say, yeah, we're against disabled children. But you see, this is the only thing they have. I want to remind you, everyone who's opposed to the destruction of the Department of Education, none of them are saying, look at our track record, look at our success. Why would you dismantle this thing that has been obviously so good? In fact, at the very end there, she says, does it need reform? 100%. Well, where the hell have you been? Where the hell has your party been? Where the hell has every single Democrat for the last 4.5 decades been? I am so sick of this. I'm so sick of all of the Democrats who are criticizing Elon Musk and Doge and all the other things that are going and saying, well, everyone agrees we've got to get rid of the fraud. Well, where in the hell have you been? You haven't done a damn thing. And now someone's doing something, and now they're screaming for the disabled children. Trust me, the parents of the disabled children, we're just fine with this.
Democrat politicians
let me tell you something.
send their kids to private schools.
I'm going to tell you.
All
Number
right,
one,
I'm ready.
Number one, we are one nation under God, and don't make a joke about that.
Do you think there should be Trump Bibles in public schools?
Number two is the issue that
the Department of Education has wasted $100 billion a year. So cut the crap. You yourself admit they don't do any education. Now, you say that Trump is not dismantling. He's already dismantled with DOGE. And let me make one thing also clear. Department of Education was created by an executive order by Jimmy Carter as a payback to the unions. Subsequently, Congress came in and created it, and we're going to end it the same way with an executive order dismantling it. Subsequently finished by a decision by Congress. Now, let's be real clear. All of these issues as it relates to Pell Grants, special needs, all that stuff is being moved to different departments within Washington. They are not being eliminated, and don't make it sound like these kids are being forgotten, because they're not. But if you want to talk about no child left behind, if that's what the Democrat liberals believe in, that screwed us up, screwed our kids more than anything, because no kid left behind made sure that every kid passed. And now we've got kids who can't even read at 8th grade level because they were passed. We have a 19-year-old who graduated with honors who can't read proficiently. All of this Democrat nonsense labelism is for the birds. And let me tell you one more thing. The Constitution does not guarantee an education. It is not a federal right. It is not a federal issue. It is something that, under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, is left to the states. The state constitutions have provisions where you have a right to education. But this is something that is for parents and for educators, for teachers that we do love. We don't love Randi Weingarten and what she did to our kids when she couldn't find one metric in the billions of dollars that we gave her to open the schools to make it safe enough for her and her pals to go to open up those schools. You know what, Randi? Go back to Ukraine for the third time to try to figure out what they're doing in education. And let me tell you one more thing. I'm not done.
One more thing.
One more thing is these kids in China and in Russia that were studying quantum physics while our kids were hiding and doing drugs and alcohol, and the kids in Norway and Denmark and Sweden. We spend more money per kid than any country in the world, and we're losing because of the Democrats. And that's the end of that.
That was beautiful. Yesterday, we showed you a flashback clip of Judge Jeanine owning Jessica Tarlov in the greatest own that show's ever seen, and now we're going to have to replace it because that is the greatest own. And once again, at the hands of a 70-year-old 4'11" woman. And by the way, our very own Katie Pavlich from Town Hall. You saw her the other day in the new media seat at the press briefing. Well, Katie was on the panel yesterday too, and she wanted a little piece of Jessica.
And when I hear Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America, I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished
because we're against it.
I know you are. Thank you for admitting it in such a public forum.
We're going to accuse the Republicans of not caring about disabled kids getting an education or poor kids getting an education. The Biden administration threatened to withdraw funding for student lunches if school districts did not force young women to have men in their locker rooms competing with them. So if we want to talk about those types of things, we can, but that's not what the president did today.
Thank you, Katie. See, that's the kind of quality stuff you get from Town Hall. Love that woman. One other thing, back to Judge Jeanine talking about how there's no federal constitutional right to an education. This has always been in the state's purview. 100% true, but you don't have to go all the way back to the founders and George Washington establishing that. No, in fact, as Glenn Beck showed us yesterday on The Blaze, all you got to do is look at the founding of the Department of Education. See, all these people lamenting and screaming and crying about this executive order and hopefully future legislation that will dismantle the Department of Education once and for all. Nobody's going back and looking at the language that was used to create this department. Glenn did, and this is brilliant.
As Michaela was doing her homework on this, she said...
One of your producers?
Yeah, one of our producers. She said, have you read the Department of Education Organization Act? I'm like,
oh, obviously.
Of course I have, but tell me what you found. Listen to this. It is the intention. This is the founding document passed by Congress. It is the intention of Congress in the establishment of the Department of Education to protect the rights of state and local governments and public and private educational institutions. Now, just that Are they operating within the law that was set by Congress?
Because I think you could convince me that that's a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Right? That sounds great.
Right. So let me read that again. The intention of Congress in the establishment of the Department of Education to protect the rights of state and local governments and public and private educational institutions in the area of educational policies and administration of programs, and to strengthen and improve the control of such governments and institutions over their own educational programs and policies. You hear the second half of that? To strengthen and improve the local and state administration and the control of their own educational programs and policies. That is not what the DOE is doing.
No.
Not even.
Not even close. It's a brilliant get and a brilliant find and a brilliant grab by the brilliant producer of the Glenn Beck Show. And I can only wonder what our producer has been doing every single day as we put together the rundown for this show, because not that, that's for sure.
Yikes.
Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean you, of course. I apologize. Although, Kevin works very hard. Too hard, in fact. Kevin, take this weekend off.
Gee, thanks. I probably won't.
That said, Beck with a great own there. Katie Pavlich with a great own. Jessica Tarlov with a complete and total fail. Janine Pira absolutely spiking the ball on her head. It's fantastic. And everyone needs to be singing from the same songbook here when it comes to the Department of Education. Look at the language that Glenn Beck just read to you. That was in the act that created this thing. Why did they write that in the act that Carter signed in? Because they knew that they could never create a Department of Education unless they lied to the American people at the time and told us, hey, this is to strengthen local control. This is to reinforce the state's position here. This is never going to usurp the natural control and direction that local jurisdictions have over public and private schools too. Trust me. Oh, no. This is just so you can get more money and we can make it go to you faster. Well, that's obviously not what the Department of Education became, and it happened very quickly. That's how it always happens in Washington, D.C., and it's time with this department for it to go. It was a gratuitous attack on you, and I apologize.
Next line.
Hold on. Wait a second. Where are we? Here we go. Oh, by the way, while I'm setting up for the next segment, it's a great time to remind you that we have awesome merch at townhall.com. The link is down there in the description of this video. There's great T-shirts, there's great mugs and travel mugs, and you can get your very own Larry Town Hall mug right there, the one that I use right here. Wait, that's not me. That makes it look like I'm asking that. Wait, people are saying no. Oh, no, yes. Oh, no. I think it's 50-50 right now, but we'll see. If you think that I should be nicer to Kevin, our executive producer, please let us know in the chat. And buy a Larry mug. You'll remember, I think it was last week when Gavin Newsom started his podcast and he had on Charlie Kirk and he used really weird sign language, like it was some sort of semaphore thing where he was trying to flag down some sort of deaf prostitute in the street. There was a comedian who made that line, which is pretty funny considering Los Angeles and San Francisco have plenty of prostitutes right now walking the streets, thanks to Gavin Newsom. But in the midst of his conversation with Charlie Kirk, he claimed that this whole Latinx thing, Latinx, he thinks it's stupid and he doesn't understand where it came from. And he told Charlie Kirk, he said, no one from my office has ever used this term. Now, you'll remember that we then showed you tweet after tweet after tweet from none other than Gavin Newsom himself using the Latinx word there in his tweets. And that was fun, you know. Yesterday, CNN decided they wanted a little bit in on the fun, and they did one better. They didn't just find tweets. They found, well, video.
So let's talk about the word Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree.
But where did that even
No more Latinx,
like,
everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, these aren't minor shifts. These are progressive issues that Gavin Newsom used to champion until fairly recently. And now he's not just walking away from them. He's sort of acting like they were never legitimate with that clip talking about Latinx in the first place. But let's take Latinx. We did find somebody who used it repeatedly in his office. Let's take a listen to this.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
Latinx. God, what a moron he is. He's also evil, Governor Hairgel is, and the ability to lie like that with such guile is terrifying, actually. But it's a great skill to have when you're a politician. Please do whatever you can to keep this man away from the White House. That was an interesting thing, though, because I want to remind you that this is CNN doing this. CNN is going after Gavin Newsom. Why? What's going on here? That, by the way, going after Gavin Newsom from the right, from a conservative perspective, and calling him a liar, undermining his attempts right now to ingratiate himself to voters and position himself for a 2028 run for the White House. Why would they do that? And it's not just CNN. There was a weird trend over the last 36 hours in media, especially in media that is usually hostile to Donald Trump and Republicans. Look at this on MSNBC.
We got to say this, which is that he is the most talented political athlete, maybe of all time. Maybe of all time.
I would agree with that.
He took January 6th and what was undoubtedly a negative event, his role in initiating a Capitol riot, a deadly Capitol riot. And in some ways, he turned that narrative around, and maybe it even helped him in this election. At the very least, it didn't hurt him that much.
Okay, to that very point, I spoke to a big investor this week who voted for Donald Trump because he didn't feel like Joe Biden was pro-business, and he obviously hates regulation. And he said, what we've learned in the last 6 weeks is that Donald Trump is a stone-cold political genius and an economic imbecile. Do you think he's a stone-cold political genius?
I think, to your point, that he's a political athlete that rarely comes along. I mean, he has a feral instinct for the jugular. But we got.
All right. So a couple of things here. First of all, obviously, for every one nice thing they are forced to say about Donald Trump, you also hear 3 or 4 negative things they can't have. And please, January 6th was a deadly riot. Okay. Well, yes, it was deadly for poor Ashley Babbitt and for a couple of other people. But that said, this is MSNBC. There's just so much they're going to say. But praising his political abilities, praising his ability to deregulate, I mean, that's something you don't often see on MSNBC. Is there something going on here? Is the media starting to turn around? Are they trying to actually appeal to some audience members who have already left them? Maybe. Although if they are trying to appeal to new audience members, I got to ask the burning question that we're all thinking. What the hell is that? Boy, there's a lot going on here. Not even close to how you wear a cowboy hat. With the bolo tie and then like a chiffon scarf? What is happening? And I was expecting some like Southern or Western drawl, and he sounds like he's from the West, from the Upper West Side. All right, so maybe there really isn't that big of a change in the media. In fact, most of the takes yesterday were, well, the typical toilet takes that you would get. Here's Ana Navarro lamenting and wondering why people who voted for Donald Trump are still supporting him.
Police departments in South Florida are signing cooperation agreements to be deputized as ICE. When we, I keep thinking, okay,
this is going to be
this is going to change the way folks, they're gleeful. Everybody I know who voted for Trump is gleeful and supportive of everything he's doing.
So she's dumbfounded. You have to understand something about Ana Navarro, who always likens herself. She always positions herself, and she's always identified as a Republican strategist. I have worked in Washington, D.C. for over a dozen years. I have worked in conservative political commentary for over 15 years now. I have never once met one Republican elected official who will ever concede or admit that Anna Navarro ever worked on any kind of successful Republican campaign, but she's still billed as a Republican strategist. But you have to understand that the Republicans she claims she worked for, John McCain, Jeb Bush, Charlie Crist, I think, when he was a Republican in Florida, she's Florida-based. These are Republicans who, for the most part, often promised things when they were running and then didn't quite deliver. So maybe that's why she's shocked and surprised. She's like, I don't understand. I'm waiting for these Trump supporters to turn their back on him with all these things they're doing, because the disconnect is that she's not used to seeing a Republican politician win election and then literally do everything he said he was going to do. So she doesn't know what to make of this. Why are all you people still supporting Trump? And the answer is because he's literally doing what he said he would. And that doesn't make sense. That said, it wasn't the biggest garbage take we saw yesterday in the sphere. Take a look at these two. You know how they say when God shuts a door, he opens a window? You know how they say, you know, when life gives you lemons, no offense, Don, you turn it into lemonade. This is the living example of that. Now, here we got two primetime cable news hosts who have been humiliated publicly by being fired by their networks for being disasters, for being unsuccessful, for being an embarrassment to the brand. I mean, when you're such an embarrassment to CNN and MSNBC that they send you packing, even though you check plenty of boxes there on the DEI scorecard, and they're still not willing to keep you around, you know you've got to suck. And here they are. Major doors closed in their face. But what is that? God closes a door, he opens a window. Well, here's the window that's opened up. Here's the upside. Here's the lemonade. They've got so much time on their hands that they can talk to each other on a video stream. This one on Don Lemon's platform, Lemon Nation, because who doesn't want to be a part of Lemon Nation? All right, well, let's see what this Mensa meeting looks like exactly. These are the brilliant minds that were just, frankly, let's face it, too good for CNN and MSNBC. They got to venture out on their own, right? You know, you think about it. Megyn Kelly, fired by mainstream media, starts her own thing, bigger than ever. Tucker Carlson, ditto. I mean, you can keep it going on and on. You get fired, you get canceled by the mainstream, big tech, whatever. You go out, you start your own thing, you explode when you're a conservative. What are the odds that these two are going to do well now that they don't have big money corporate media propping them up? How successful is Joy Reid going to be without that little peacock in the corner, right? Well, she'll be as successful as Don Lemon has been. All right, so Lemon Nation, let's see what these two brilliant minds are bringing to the table.
Grampy Trump, let's talk. Let's talk. First of all, you can't make Canada the 51st state without going to war with them. And let me explain how that happened, how that worked out the last time we tried to go to war with Canada. They burned the White House to the ground in 1814 and won the war. Canada beat us in the War of 1812. They probably like their chances against us. We're not going to beat them in a war because we have never been able to do that. You'd have to occupy a country that is equivalent of the size of the United States, in which the top 2/3 of it is uninhabited, frozen forest land that touches the Arctic. You know how that worked out when the Nazis tried that with Russia, which is the equivalent of Canada on that part of the world? We gonna lose.
Okay. First of all, I do love that content inspired Owen to become a YouTube member. Owen, you got to examine your life choices, my brother. You got to look in the mirror and figure out unless you like hate watching this stuff, which could be the case. All right. So let's break this down for a moment, shall we? First of all, Joy, we reject your idiotic premise in the first place. We don't believe that there is an actual legitimate move to make Canada the 51st state, but I'm glad you're spending a lot of time on it and you researched it clearly. But if we are to strengthen our relationship with our neighbors to the north, maybe sharing monetary policy or currency, or maybe strengthening our national security interests, I don't think it would happen through a conquest, through an armed conquest of that nation. I think it would be a political organization and reorganization of our relationships. And whether that means they become a 51st state or what have you, obviously, I don't think so. I don't want Canadians to be a part of the United States of America. They're too liberal. They expect free health care that costs them 70% of their income. So no, that's not going to happen. I reject the premise that if it were to happen, it would be an armed conquest. All right. That's the first point. However, just for the sake of argument, let's go with it. I believe their military has like 40 jets. We have hundreds. If there was to be an armed conflict, not that I want there to be one, but if there were to be an armed military conflict between Canada and the United States, it would not last long. And I assure you we would triumph. That's number one. Number two, if our militaries just stayed out of it and it was just, American citizens versus Canadian citizens, number one, they've got about 40 million, I think. We have 340 million. We have 50% more armed citizens than they have. And based on how they play hockey, it's a no-brainer. We got this. But let's go to the historic aspect of this, because little Miss Harvard grad here has decided to give us a lesson on the War of 1812, which of course everyone knows was between the United States and Canada. Wait, no, it wasn't. There was no Canada. Great Britain waged war on us in the War of 1812 because King George was suffering from some syphilitic fits. And he decided that he wanted to get his colonies back. Now, it's true, the northern British colonies, that is now Canada, they were involved in a few skirmishes with us. For instance, the United States of America, then a fully formed nation, we took on some of the British colonies in Toronto and we burned them to the ground. Now, the British colonial army did breach into the Potomac and they made their way to Washington, D.C. It's true, but they didn't come from Canada. Those were British regulars from the UK. And yeah, they burned the White House, but, it was James Madison at the time. So what was he going to do? We didn't lose that war, though, Joy. Everyone calls it a draw, I guess. If you look at historians and you research this, if you ask Grok who won the War of 1812, they'll tell you it was a draw. But let's be clear here. Great Britain was the aggressor. They wanted their colonies back. Last I checked, they didn't get their colonies back. We kicked their butts in the Battle of New Orleans, which remarkably happened a couple of months after we signed a peace treaty with them because news didn't travel very fast. I love that little point of history, by the way, that we signed a peace treaty ending the War of 1812 and then months later kicked Britain's ass in the Battle of New Orleans. And last I checked, we kept our nation. We grew our nation. We built our nation up stronger and is now the strongest on the planet and has been so almost 100 years going. So by any actual objective measure, no, we did not lose the War of 1812 to anyone, certainly not Canada, because there was no Canada. But other than that, that was a brilliant take from Joy Reid. And I hope this is going to be a regular thing on Lemon Nation. And you know what? Here's the weird thing. That's not even the worst take of all from yesterday from our friends on the left on cable news. May I remind you of one Congressman Jamal Bowman. You remember him. He's the one who pulled the fire alarm during a vote over a bill last year. He lost his primary in New York. When you're a Democrat in Brooklyn and you can't win your own party's primary, you know you've got to suck. And here was his wise observation about Elon Musk.
That's not true. And this shows again the American people do not trust Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is incompetent in his position. And how do we know? Because they fired tens of thousands of people, was challenged in court. The court said the people have to go back, and now the people are coming back. He's incompetent. He's a thief. He's a Nazi, and people don't trust him.
Elon Musk is a thief and a Nazi. If I'm Elon Musk, I might have my lawyers pick up the phone and call CNN on that one. And I'd like to add to that, actually, as a very happy but somewhat skittish Tesla owner. If you're like me and you drive one of those miracle machines around and you're concerned that somebody's going to key your car or trash it or intimidate you, or maybe even worse, let me tell you something. If you do suffer some damage to your car, you might want to also send a lawyer letter to Mr. Bowman and to CNN, because that kind of language inspires violence against Tesla owners. And in the climate we're living in right now, I don't think a responsible broadcast network should be airing things like that. Do you? It's quite irresponsible, in fact. That's our roundup. I hope you enjoyed it.
Hey, Larry, did you see the extra clip I sent you for this upcoming segment?
I did.
All right, great.
I did. In fact, let me set up both of these clips real fast.
I only want you to use the.
No, I know, but I need to get the other one going too. All right, we're good.
Should be noted, this is a great example of your producer working very hard.
This is a good time to remind you that I wrote a book about how lousy the media is. It's called Shameless Liars: How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It focuses on the 2024 election and the media's coverage of it. I'd love for you to pick up a copy. You can get it at Amazon. We bypassed the regular gatekeepers in big publishing world, and we self-produced this. We self-published it. It's available at Amazon. It's called Shameless Liars. You can get it in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, or the audiobook narrated by the author, Larry O'Connor. So check that out. Get the book, and you'll make me a happy man. And you'll really make Kevin happy. Because the more books the more books I sell, the less crap I give Kevin. Yesterday, the New York Times ran with a story that was absolutely unbelievable. Take a look at this headline. This is just amazing, outrageous. Here you go. New York Times: Musk set to get access to top secret U.S. plan for potential war with China. What? Giving Elon Musk access to some of the nation's most closely guarded military secrets is a major expansion of his role as an advisor to President Trump and highlights his conflict of interest. Good Lord, my head is exploding. This is terrible. It makes me want to go key a Tesla or maybe firebomb a charging station. That's unbelievable. Have I said how unbelievable it is? It is. It's unbelievable. And you shouldn't believe it. Because apparently it's bull. It's not true. Sean Parnell is the spokesperson for the Pentagon. He appeared on Fox News this morning within 12 hours of this story running, and, well, he cleared things up.
Yeah, on the record, that is completely fake. And let me show you this. This started with this New York Times headline, and they've since changed it. But Musk set to get access to top secret U.S. plan for potential war with China. This is egregious. This is fake. The New York Times should retract this story. 5 anonymous sources. I've been on bilat calls with the secretary. I see how hard he's working to implement the president's agenda and pursue peace through strength. This type of garbage from the New York Times undermines that process and undermines our mission. It shouldn't happen at all. Elon Musk is just coming over here for a visit. Again, he's an innovator. This is a guy that shot a rocket at thousands of miles an hour that's thousands of pounds. And as it landed back on the earth, it was grabbed out of midair by a giant robot arm. Yeah. We want a guy like Elon Musk in the Defense Department to help us come up with creative solutions to the problems that we face in the day. But this article is ridiculous. It's fake. And I can confirm that on the record.
It's great to see. That's Sean Parnell. He, a fellow podcaster, military veteran. former podcaster, I should say, and now the spokesperson for the Pentagon, doing a great job with Pete Hegseth. It is great to have people who are so good at the media and pushing back and fighting. So Donald Trump isn't doing all the fighting with the media and all the lies like he had to do the first time around. It's wonderful to see, and good for him going right after the Times and holding up a copy of the headline and all that stuff. But also, let's go back to the headline for a second, and let's just examine this for a second. So access to top secret U.S. plan, that's not true. But let's take the actual fact of the matter that the Pentagon, doing basic strategic war planning, and let's face it, we live in a pretty high-tech world here, whether it's cyber warfare, drone warfare, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and aerospace, being involved in our warfare with adversaries like China. If Elon Musk is asked to come over and bring some of his expertise and knowledge to the table in some strategic planning, or to evaluate current systems that are in place to fight a high-tech cyber and aerospace war against our adversary, China, why wouldn't that be a good thing? What would the New York Times headline be when they learned that this nuclear physicist, this professor named Oppenheimer, has now been brought into secret war plans to create a weapon against the Nazis and the Japanese during World War II? This is ridiculous. For our entire history, we have utilized brilliant minds in American industry to win our wars. Our entire war machine that was unleashed to win World War II and design and manufacture tanks and bombers and fighter jets, that all came from private industry. I used to live in Detroit. I come from Michigan, right here, right outside Detroit. My brother went to what was then called the General Motors Institute. He got his degree in engineering from GMI, and he did what was called a co-op work program, where he would go to school for half the year, and then he would get a job at a GM location. And then after his college tuition was paid for by GM through all this program, because he was working for free, then he got a job with GM that was offered to him for a few years. And that was sort of the deal they made. It's sort of like going to West Point, right? Or the Naval Academy. So I remember he got a job at Ypsilanti at the Hydromatic plant. The Hydromatic plant in Michigan is this revolutionary industrial wonder. We don't do this anymore. That's why we're trying to get manufacturing back into America. Hydromatic at the time, when my brother was there, made every single transmission for every single GM vehicle on the planet. Chevys, Buicks, Oldsmobiles, GMC trucks, all of it. They made all their transmissions there at Hydromatic. But you walk through, I remember getting a tour when I was a kid because my older brother was working there. And I got a tour of Hydromatic plant, and there were all these pictures from World War II that shows because this place is huge. It's the biggest. I mean, you've never seen a manufacturing plant like Hydromatic. And I remember there were these pictures of B-52 bombers, like these giant, like the biggest bombers that you'll ever see getting manufactured at Hydromatic because it was so big. Like GM built these planes. Whoever the CEO of GM was, well, he was Elon Musk back then, right? Or like I said, Oppenheimer. Like it's like the New York Times is freaking everybody out and trying to get more people to hate Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX because something perfectly logical and frankly brilliant is happening. The Pentagon is saying, hey, we're waging a cyber war and a high-tech war and a aerospace war with China. We've got Elon Musk across the Potomac working out of an office in the West Wing. Maybe he could come over here and take a look at what we're doing. And what do we get from the New York Times? It's geniuses like Elon Musk who won World War II for us. When that bomb went off in Hiroshima, it was because of geniuses like Elon Musk. That said, this is false. It's fake. And just moments ago, Donald Trump spoke to it as well.
I was over there today to address costs. Doge, thing called Doge, which you've heard about.
That's exactly right, Mr. President. You pointed out it was a fake story. We pointed out it was meant to sort of undermine whatever relationship the Pentagon has with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a patriot. Elon Musk is an innovator. Elon Musk provides a lot of capabilities our government and our military rely on, and I'm grateful for that. We welcomed him today to the Pentagon to talk about Doge, to talk about efficiencies, to talk about innovations. It was a great informal conversation. The rest of that reporting was fake. There was no war plans. There was no Chinese war plans. There was no secret plans. That's not what we were doing at the Pentagon.
I might add that I think Elon, if they ever wanted to do that, I think Elon wouldn't do it. I think he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't want to put himself in that position. But if you read what's out of the New York Times, it's such a dishonest newspaper. It's such garbage. It's, it used to be called all the news that's fit to print. Well, it's all the news that's not fit to print. They have fake sources, or they don't have sources. I think they make most of it up. But this was a made-up story by the New York Times. I call it the failing. It's a failing newspaper. It's failing. And they shouldn't do that. They really are the enemy of the people.
And something else, I don't know.
We do need honest journalism in this. We've made such big strides over the last 2 months, but we just need honest journalism, and we don't have it. When you have a CNN, you have to watch these people every once in a while just to see where they're coming from, and it's so dishonest. MSNBC is, I think, probably worse, and they're both doing horribly in the ratings. I think they're going to be turned off. I don't think they're not doing any ratings. You're doing well in the ratings.
All right. Well, there goes Mr. Trump doing what he does best, which is pushing back on the media and telling it like it is. And we appreciate that, too. So bottom line here, New York Times lied. It's not a true story. And, oh, by the way, as Trump just said, even if they had asked Musk, he probably wouldn't do it because he doesn't want to get in that. And it's true. He seems to be a bit of a peacenik, and I don't know if he wants his technology and his brains to be utilized for war purposes. But thirdly, and most importantly, if the Pentagon had asked for his advice on cyber warfare and aerospace warfare, that actually wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because we have done this. You go back to the Civil War. Ironclad ships were invented during the Civil War by private industry. There has always been a partnership between our military, our government, and our private industry to solve our nation's biggest problems. And potential war with China is definitely one of them. So, fake story. Even if the Pentagon wanted him as part of these meetings, Musk wouldn't have done it, according to Trump. And thirdly, as far as I'm concerned, they should extend the invitation and get him in there, because it would be a smart thing to do. All in all, though, New York Times, great journalism. Looking forward to you winning that Pulitzer. All right. Have I mentioned my book? I think I have. Buy it. Have I mentioned our merch? I think I had. Get a mug. Have I mentioned how great Kevin is as our executive producer, because he finds some of the best stuff for us to use?
Woo!
How about some super chats just for Kevin? Nah, I'm kidding.
No, just like and subscribe.
Just like and subscribe, everybody. Thank you so much. Whatever platform you're watching us on. Oh, we do have some super chats, though. There you go. Roxy Provu. Hey, Roxy. You ever, Roxy Hart is a character from Chicago. I'd done Chicago like 2 different times in my theater career. I love that show. Roxy Hart. Roxy says that, Larry, you're like a new friend. I always want to hang out with you every day. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to be everybody's friend, Roxy. I appreciate that. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I generally charge my friends $10 to hang out with me, so this worked out well. Ball Straight Alabe, Jeff, how are you? Bravo, Larry, you forgot to say Simon Says first. What is that a reference to?
He sent this at 12:20, so that could be.
That could have been buying the mug.
Could have been.
Oh, no, it could have been that was when we did the read for VIP. Become a member of VIP, Town Hall VIP. Not sure. But I'm sorry, I forgot to say Simon Says. Simon Says. You're getting a lot of love in the chat. Have you been begging for positive remarks?
I need to be affirmed.
No, you don't. It's a Friday in Lent. You don't. Come on, it's part of your penance. Thank you, Adam Baker on Facebook. I'm glad you got to watch the whole show today. That's a good reminder to let you all know that whatever platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or hello, our OG listeners on Rumble, we do love you. We love our viewers on Rumble, and for those of you who are listening on Spotify or Apple, we appreciate the likes, we appreciate the reviews and the subscribes. If you're listening on audio only, which is our growing audience right now, if you could go to your platform, whether it's Spotify or Apple, and leave a 5-star review, that would be huge for us. That makes a huge difference, and it also catches the eye of some potential advertisers, and that keeps us going too. What also keeps us going is your membership to Town Hall VIP as well. Oh, and Jim with a $5 super chat. There you go. You got your $5 super chat from Jim, Kevin. Kevin is hardly working. I'm sure he meant working hard.
That one hurt to put up on the screen.
Can I just say, and I feel terrible because so the irony in me giving Kevin a hard time right now is that he probably has put in more hours this week on the job than he has in quite, and he is very, very hardworking. But this week in particular, you have worked your off, if I may say, Kevin. Have you not?
This is true, but
you have been churning out content, because you have to understand, Kevin does more than just this show. Kevin is in charge of all of our digital content, especially our video content, on all of our sites and on all of our social media platforms. And if you've noticed, you've like tripled our content and our output. So I'm teasing Kevin. I love Kevin, and I have great admiration for his hard work. And I want to take a shower now because I've been so mean. I'm sorry, Kevin.
All is forgiven.
You should take the weekend off, though. You really should. I'm taking the weekend off. I'm heading down to Jacksonville, Florida. So if you're walking around Jacksonville and you see someone who looks like that guy on the streaming show, it's me. Leave me alone, though. No, I'm kidding. Say hi. I'll be walking around with Meredith. Anything else going on? Got to catch. Oh, how's your bracket doing? Kevin, did you put a bracket in?
I did not, and I rarely ever do.
Really? Should I show everybody where things stand right now on the Town Hall Media Bracketology contest? I forget. What does the winner get on this? Do we have like a prize?
I'm sure there is, but I'm so unplugged from it that I have no idea.
Hang on a second here. I'm going to share this with everybody. Can I? Here we go. CBS Sports. As you can see, March Madness, Town Hall Media March Madness right there. And who's in first place there, Kev? Who's that in first place in our bracket right there?
I don't know.
I'm sorry. What do you mean you don't know? Oh, no, I don't want to open the app. What have I done? No, shut up. I don't want the app. Did I screw it up? I think everybody saw. Everyone saw exactly who it was. It's me. Me. I'm in first place. And yes, I picked Michigan to win the whole thing. Go Blue. All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. I think we're good. Sorry, it's just I need to go to the airport now. And so I'm trying to drag it out at the end here because people are still watching. And I haven't seen enough likes on this video yet. So if you can just give me a few more likes before you leave. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment, because I know you have an opinion about everything we said here today. So leave an opinion, leave a comment. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. My name's Larry O'Cotter, and you can call me Larry.